Tensions between China and Taiwan continue to mount, but Taiwan is getting a big boost from the US, and a new wave of arrests hit Hong Kong. Then more on this week's China News headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell, and this episode is sponsored by Chuck Norris, the only man who can stand faster than you can run. Need I say more? Yes? Okay, I'll tell you at the end. A bipartisan U.S. delegation paid a visit to Taiwan, where they vowed to help Taiwan strengthen its defenses against growing Chinese aggression. The delegation met Taiwan's new president, Ching-te, who has vowed to defend Taiwanese sovereignty and is pushing for defense reforms. The visit also came after China finished up a two-day punishment drill aimed at intimidating Taiwan after Li's inauguration. They call those drills Joint Sword 2024A. I just did a full episode on that, so if you're interested, I'll put a link below. But just a week after those punishment drills, China launched yet another military drill around the island. This past Wednesday, Taiwan reported that 28 Chinese fighter jets accompanied warships to simulate yet another military attack on Taiwan. Michael McCall, the Republican chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, said that the Chinese war game was an intimidation tactic to punish democracy and pushed for faster arms deliveries to Taiwan, which he admitted have been partially slowed by limited U.S. military-industrial capacity. That seems like something the CCP doesn't need to know. I wish we could say the bad news for Taiwan ended there, but it didn't, because Taiwan's legislature passed changes that some see as favoring China. The Nationalist Party, also known as the Kuomintang, or KMT, has been pushing for this legislation, which could bog down the president's allies in court cases and restrict his ability to govern. The KMT officially backs unification with China and maintains channels of communications with the mainland even while Beijing refuses to speak with the current president. That's why former president of Taiwan, Ma Ying-jeou, just met with Xi Jinping. They're just getting around what the Taiwanese people want and going directly to the CCP. Chiang Kai-shek must be rolling over in his grave. What's really worrying is this new legislation, which sparked massive protests and fights in Parliament, gives more power to the legislator to control budgets. These budgets include defense spending. And since the KMT is in bed with China, you gotta wonder how much control China now has over Taiwan's defense spending. All is not lost, though. Now that Parliament has passed it, the premier of the Executive Yuan, which is the executive branch of the government, can either veto the legislation or hand it over to the president, which is a different position. Taiwan's government is a little different from ours. He would have to proclaim the bill into law in 10 days, or else it automatically becomes law. So there's still a chance the legislation won't pass. But the CCP isn't spending all of its time grinding down Taiwan because Hong Kong needs grinding too. Hong Kong arrested 6 people for sedition under Article 23, a new security law that was fast-tracked through Hong Kong's parliament in March. The law could essentially mean any criticism of the CCP or the Hong Kong government could land you in jail. Trials for the accused could be held behind closed doors, according to this law. And this past Tuesday, the CCP got their hands on the first victims. 1 man and 5 women were arrested for publishing social media posts that incited hatred against the central government. Among those jailed is Chow Hong-tun, a human rights activist. Officials said these social media posts were targeting a sensitive date, June 4th, the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. For years, Hong Kong was the only place in China where the massacre could be commemorated under the one country, two systems rule. But after Beijing's brutal crackdown and takeover, this is no longer the case. Remember, China is offering Taiwan a one country, two systems model. They could be just like Hong Kong. What a deal. And after the break, Iran's trade with China isn't all it's cracked up to be. Welcome back. It looks like Iran is disappointed in the results of its Look East policy. That's because despite all the bluster about Chinese investments in the Islamic Republic, along with Beijing diplomatically defending the country while helping it skirt Western sanctions, Iran is apparently only number 38 on the list of China's biggest trading partners. Man, this is like finding out you're not on someone's MySpace top 8 all over again. Also, if you're old enough to get that reference, it's time to book your first colonoscopy. Iran heavily relies on China for its economic survival, especially in light of years of corruption, mismanagement, and Western sanctions on Tehran. And the CCP is Iran's biggest buyer of oil. But Iran's regional rivals, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the UAE, get way more trade with China. Iran's favor with China is crashing and burning harder than their president did Too soon? China has benefited from tight relations with Iran in a few ways, such as plans to gain contracts and construct housing units in Tehran. But some Iranians aren't pleased, since that comes at the expense of local contractors. Former Roads and Transportation Minister Ahmed Khorram said that Iran has given China privileges that are unprecedented in our country. If Iran really isn't benefiting from all that trade, it'll be harder to justify. Although, given China's construction record, it's already hard to justify. Are we sure that helicopter wasn't made in China? Meanwhile, China continues to crack down on Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang. Some of this stuff we've covered in previous videos, but a recent Sky News report detailed how religion in Xinjiang is on the verge of totally disappearing. Which makes sense, because making people and things vanish is what communist regimes are best at. Surveillance has increased, and the CCP continues to demolish mosques, ban headscarves and other Islamic attire, and even censor the Quran. It's all part of an effort to sinicize the population, create a single, uniform, CCP-controlled Chinese culture. Oh, now I get why they're destroying mosques. Having buildings crumble into ruins is the fastest way to make an area feel like the rest of China. And after the break, the US is backing up China. Welcome back. The US is challenging a British claim that China is sending lethal aid to Russia. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said the U.S. had not seen any evidence that China has sent or is preparing to send lethal aid to Russia. This directly contradicted a claim by UK Defense Secretary Grant Shapps, who claimed that there was indeed evidence. Unfortunately, I have no idea if what Sullivan, who has a very bad track record on China, said is true, or if the Biden administration just doesn't want to be put in a corner where they'll have to sanction China and actually hold it accountable. The CCP already has been sending drone parts to Moscow and defending it diplomatically and economically while calling on Ukraine to surrender. But China better watch out. If they keep this up, Joe Biden might get aggressive with China. Passive-aggressive? That's who you're supporting? Wow, it's so cool how you don't care about looking stupid. A major conference in Australia was told that more than 1,200 Chinese spies are currently operating in Australia. And no, it wasn't a spy conference. The only conference where the only way to get in is to sneak in. It was the Defending Australia Summit. Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister Richard Marles gave a speech acknowledging the disagreements between China and Australia, but stressed the need for open dialogue and trade between the two countries nonetheless. So basically the same as every other Western leader's speech regarding concerns with China, which is, and I quote, "They're awful in almost every way, but that money though." One of the key speakers was Eric, a former Chinese spy who defected to Australia. I also did a full episode on him. Check it out, link below. But get this.
We engaged an interpreter for Eric, and she resigned on the spot because she was afraid that he would say something against China that she would have to pass through her lips, and that would hurt her.
Yes, the CCP has people in other countries terrified. I think we need to do a better job standing up to the CCP. Eric said the CCP views Australia as a country without sovereignty, a view the CCP seems to have of just about every country. He also said that China wants to keep Australia from siding with the US should it go to war with China, and said that the spies are there to intimidate Chinese people living in Australia. However, that money though. And as I mentioned in the beginning, have you ever wondered what the legendary Chuck Norris is up to these days? Well, at 84, he can still kick, but even while standing with both feet on the ground. Chuck Norris can slam a revolving door. He can start a fire just by rubbing 2 ice cubes together. Seriously, how is Chuck Norris still so awesome in his 80s? Well, he did this by making one change, a change that makes him feel like he's still in his 50s. He says he and his wife both feel decades younger and have energy all day. So, what's his secret? Go to chuckdefense.com/uncensored to find out. It'll change the way you think about your health. Again, that's chuckdefense.com/uncensored. The link is below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.